Here on the SOM Live podcast, I am the artiste known as Bronson Garrett, and I'm here with Dara and Crash Oconley, the Oconley kids. But this isn't going to be where we're yelling at you and telling you how bad you suck. We're actually going to get to know the people behind the characters or the gimmicks or whatever you young kids call them these days. So I'm now going to be sitting here with Asher and Ariana DeBoard, who came here from, tell us where you came here from.
Well, it's Ariana, too, and Dara, with your Tennessee
So Dara
accent.
and Ariana, got it.
We came here from...
And I'm from Texas. So.
Oh. Whatever,
Shoot.
it's all rednecks, it's the same thing. We originally... we're from up near Chicago, but we came here from Arizona. We've been traveling the United States since I was about 5.
Since I was like 2 years old, so as long as I had sentient knowledge and memories, we've been traveling. So we're no strangers to traveling.
So we're from all over, really.
So as far as traveling, I know I've traveled, been in the military and things like that. So where all have you guys made your residency at? You said all over, but kind of pinpoint where all over is.
It's kind of easier to say where we
I was
haven't
just
been.
about to say that. Like I haven't gotten to go really up north near New York or any of those New England states, so I really want to go visit up there near Pennsylvania and stuff because I haven't been over there.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the West Coast.
Yeah.
We lived in Florida for a bit.
Yeah.
But other than Florida and being here, this is like the farthest east that we've been. We've been everywhere on the West Coast.
So no Northeast, huh?
No,
Even
actually,
though that, like, that's the wrestling mecca.
Uncovered territory, I know. Yeah.
And
I
New
would like
England's
to go
beautiful.
there.
If
Yeah,
you
that's
ever,
what
if you ever
I've
get the
heard.
chance to go to like Maine or Rhode Island, most of my good friends in the military were from either the very far south or the Northeast. So I actually got to go to Rhode Island, Maine, New Hampshire. Shout out to all my friends in the military that were from that area. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you guys, big wrestling fans, growing up as kids, or?
Yeah, we've watched it our entire lives. My dad was a fan, and so it was just always on the TV.
So it's kind of one of those things you guys picked up being fans through him.
I remember this. There's a funny story. When he was 2 years old, he practiced doing a swanton off of a metal folding chair.
Oh, this is not a good story.
he like rotated. He flips, but he came down. He landed straight on his teeth on the back of the chair. So that was him being a little wrestler.
That's good. It was like a blue Spider-Man chair. It was all painted, and like all the blue paint was on my teeth. I busted my mouth open. It was blue paint, red blood. It looked cool. Wish I could have got a picture, but it's a bad memory.
So the first time you ever got color, was it 2?
Yeah,
is what we're saying.
That's when I first gigged.
That must be a rite of passage for everybody, because you tell that story. I remember, I don't remember it. My grandfather tells me about it. I broke my cousin's nose doing the Macho Man elbow drop off of a couch straight into his damn face.
That is absolutely perfect.
Well, yeah, we always give him crazy nicknames. I mean, his name is Asher, and we have a lot of room to work with that. We call him Crash, of course. We call him Smash, Crasher, Smasher, whatever. Just variants of destructive.
The ladies call me Crashinator, but
no,
I'm sure none of them do.
They do
all
not.
of them.
He's just a little monster. When he was born, he growled at the nurses.
That is true.
So that's a shoot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's
yeah.
true. They went to draw blood from him, as they do with babies, and he growled like a little
They draw
monster.
blood from adults too.
Well, I know.
It
I
happens
mean, like,
from
right
time.
after.
Oh.
right
Yeah,
after
I
he
was like,
born.
I was in newborn. They couldn't. I don't know. I was just born into the world, so I don't have memory of it.
Anyway,
but I was told.
he also ripped out our grandfather's tooth once as a kid. He
I was
just
a
reached
dentist.
up and
Take that,
ripped
Britt
it out.
Baker. I'm a better dentist than Britt Baker.
Yeah. Yep.
You might be a better
he's just-
interview too. No offense.
But yeah, I ripped out his tooth. When I was a little kid, I drop kicked a grown man off of a trampoline.
I forgot about that. Yeah, he did.
Where did this happen?
That was in Florida.
Yeah, we lived in Florida at the time. Yeah, he drop kicked my dad's friend.
He wanted to wrestle with me, and me as a little kid, I didn't know it was a work, and so I drop kicked him. He went flying because he was right on the edge. So yeah.
So you guys, I know you brought up doing the Swanton, and then who influenced you guys? Who were you fans of growing up as? I know I referenced mine was Randy Savage,
Absolutely.
Roddy Piper. Those guys were. I don't want to date myself, but you guys are a little bit younger than I am.
Right.
So who did you guys grow up idolizing in the same form that I did those guys from the early 90s?
I'll let you answer first because I know mine.
So the strange thing about me is I didn't look up to too many female wrestlers. I looked up to more of the male wrestlers, which is kind of weird. But my favorites growing up were Jeff Hardy, of course, as we referenced before, but also Booker T. I loved him. I don't know why I loved him.
Booker's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he was always one of my favorites. Every time he came on the screen, I got super excited. Which, I mean, clearly.
Was it Harlem Heat Booker T or was it Spinaroonie Booker T?
It was King Booker.
Okay.
I think that was around the time when I was about 8 years old, where he became King Booker. But
I don't want to tell you where I was at when he was King Booker because I would brutally date myself.
I think for me, I was total, little kid John Cena mark. I cut my hair like him.
oh
I
yeah, he
dressed
used to
up as
dress
him.
up as John Cena. He would go to
All the time.
Raw, dressed up as John Cena, and got a bunch of pictures. Little baby.
Was the
crowd.
hair then?
Oh, yeah.
Or
Oh,
was
yeah,
it, so you
absolutely.
still had the
When I
hair?
didn't
No,
have a
he used to
mohawk.
have mohawks. when he
I
was
used to
little.
have that was pretty much like my primary haircut. If I didn't have John Cena hair, I had a mohawk. But so yeah, I would dress up like him. I wanted to be everything that he was. And then as I got older, I moved on to different things. But I would say now, ultimately, my idol is Roddy Piper because there's no better speaker.
Piper is awesome.
Yeah, he is the best.
He's amazing.
Hands down. So, but when I was a little kid, definitely John Cena growing up,
for
and like she said, Jeff Hardy. That's why I did the swan.
I tried to dress like Jeff Hardy when I was late middle school, which
awesome.
probably was not a hit with the ladies, but
I mean, I would have dated you back then if you were dressing like Jeff Hardy.
I appreciate that. I'll remember that if anything ever makes me single again. So,
I was gonna call you the Crashinator.
That's right.
So obviously, me and you, there's always, and then I'll kind of gear this more toward you. You said John Cena was who you idolized growing up. Obviously, when I was very, very young kid, I was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And then later on, probably Bret Hart. But we always had, as males, that generational talent, the huge baby face, whether it be
Right.
Hogan, Sting,
Right.
Bret Hart, Cena.
Yeah.
You, as a female, and I know your age range, women's wrestling wasn't then what it is now.
No, not at all. It's kind of funny. I was house sitting for some friends last winter, and they had an old Tribute to the Troops DVD, and it wasn't too old.
No, it was.
The first one was probably like 03, 04.
It wasn't the first one. It wasn't that old, but I just remember.
Was it 06 or 07? Was it actually in Iraq?
I think. I
Yeah,
believe so.
yeah, it was in Iraq.
So if it was
Nah,
06,
yeah.
I might have been there.
Yeah.
I was actually at
Oh,
one
really?
of them. Yeah.
That's awesome. But I just remember watching it and thinking holy shit, women's wrestling has progressed so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched it, so I guess you don't really notice as you're watching it how things change,
Absolutely.
But if you go back and you think how different wrestling is just in general from how it was a few years ago, it's constantly evolving, constantly changing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a great time to be getting into wrestling like we are now.
Yeah. Especially you, I would say, because it's always, there's never an opportunity that you should miss with wrestling. You should always be involved with it. But I think if you want to be a women's wrestler, now is your chance.
yeah.
Now is your opportunity because there's never been more open doors. There's never been more opportunities for women, and I think it's great. All the intergender stuff, all the women's
Oh,
wrestling.
exactly, because I
all of
think
it.
most girls watching wrestling, I think there might be a handful, but very few actually watched it and thought, I wanna wrestle a bra and panties match. Most girls were like, I wanna beat up the guys,
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's a great time for all women to really get into wrestling right now. It's a great time to break into the business because there's all these opportunities opening up for so many girls. And I think we're both very privileged because we started at young ages. I started when I was 17 and he started at 15.
I wish I could have. Like there was nothing like this available when I was that age.
Right.
Or I probably would have. I went to high school with Celeste Landell, who, shout out if you're watching this, who was Buddy Landell's daughter.
Right.
So I got to pick his brain and hang out with him. But it wasn't like Buddy didn't have a school or Buddy didn't have a ring.
Right.
So I didn't have that opportunity, which I think is really damn cool.
Yeah.
But to kind of segue back to women's wrestling and talking about that, because you're obviously a woman wrestler, now is the time, especially, and now is the time for women role models, because going back, I'm a Sherry Martell mark.
Oh yeah,
from like the
she's
80s,
great.
but I mean, it was just her. Like, who else can you name from that time frame?
I mean, like,
Sherry, Luna, Wendy Richter. I mean, there were a few of them.
Yeah. I think, like, going on to what you were saying, like, breaking into the business in general back then was extremely harder. I don't think people understood the work that any of those legends that we recognize put the work that they put in, because it's one thing just trying to be a wrestler, but trying to be a wrestler back then at that time, it wasn't so open to everyone. It was very hush-hush. It was very so like a small circle kind of thing, and that's even bigger for women now, because now it's not so much of a hush-hush small circle thing, and for women's wrestling, now it's kind of like, we need you to step up and be that kind of bigger woman and step in and fill those shoes. And so I think it's great that people are actually stepping up and actually wanting to do it.
And it's pretty cool. I think society has kind of helped change that opinion of it as well.
For sure.
Because women in sports in general, I mean, you look at women's soccer, you look at women's basketball. I think Dana White and the UFC did a tremendous job of putting women on an equal playing ground as men, with Ronda Rousey, who also has that wrestling kind of connection as well.
Yeah.
So speaking of, is there any women that you look up to now that you're like, hey, I kind of want to model my career path after her? I like the shit that she does. Is that?
I love Becky Lynch. Everybody loves Becky Lynch for sure.
She's Irish. I mean, come on.
I think she's amazing. Another women wrestler who I absolutely adore would have to be, it's kind of odd, but I love Alicia Fox just because of her longevity in the business alone. Like, she's so loyal.
I'm a
to
big fan for other
professional
reasons.
But I think my goal in wrestling is to not only be like main eventing WrestleMania like everybody wants to as a woman, but also having this be my entire life. Like, this is all I want to do. And I think I really respect people who, not that I don't respect the women that aren't in it as long, but the ones that really are out there making it basically their life until they die. Like
Natalia, I think, would be a
Natalia,
good example of that.
Yeah, that's another great example. I love Natalia. Like,
There-
I want to be an old lady taking bumps through tables.
So you want to
know
be
what I mean?
Mae Young or
Yeah,
Mola?
Mae Young,
or,
for sure, yeah, but that's my goal basically.
So Crash, on to you. Or you, 16,
Yes.
you said. So you're still kind of in that mark to where you're looking at not only the old stuff but the new stuff as well.
Yes.
Who do you look up to and idolize and want to be? And we can go old school and new school.
Right.
We can go all day. You name everybody if you want to. It doesn't
That's
matter.
the thing is, like, I'm still growing up and still, like, finding out, like, what my idols are and stuff. A guy that I don't know why, I don't know what first really, like, kind of made me, like, take a second glance at him, but I've always been a Seth Rollins guy. I've always, since he was in ROH, before he actually came into
The Tyler
WWE.
Black days.
Yeah, when he was wrestling as Tyler Black, going up against, like, Jerry Lynn and stuff, going up against Jimmy Jacobs, things like that. I was just, like, in love with his look and stuff, and I was like, I want to be like him. I really like him. Because when I was growing up from that little kid going into, like, my preteen years, you know, I was starting to get more into the independent wrestling scene, and that was just kind of the first guy that I latched on to. So I've always, like, loved his career path and stuff like that, and so he is definitely one of my idols, I would say, now. But there's, like, so many top level talents that I look up to. Ambrose, Moxley, whatever you want to call him.
I love Moxley.
He is great, and I would say if you are, like, one of those kind of people to where you feel like you've been held down, suppressed, whatever, that kind of rebellious character, I think he is definitely today's Stone Cold. I think the only person that could even come close is Kevin Owens, and he's another
I love
great
Kevin
idol
Owens.
that I have.
Yeah.
So like people like that, and it's not necessarily like a traditional like go through the indies thing that I like. I mean, if you're someone like Enzo Amore, I still support people like that too, who are breaking into the business directly into WWE. It's just I support that kind of long, hard path because a lot of people when they do this business, it's hard. It just not just the physical aspect, but the mental aspect of it, being able to stick with it and understand that there's hardships and stuff like that, and you're gonna make it through. Things like that, and when they make it to that top level and there's someone that people like me look up to, that's like an amazing story to me. So when that's when I find guys like that I like. Another one that I could list for an example is I really love Velveteen Dream because when I saw him on Tough Enough,
I love the character, man.
yeah,
It's a hell of a
yeah,
gimmick.
Absolutely, the gimmick is
sure.
like a genius idea, and when I saw him on Tough Enough, he took it very, very seriously, whereas a lot of, I wouldn't say they didn't take it seriously because that's not fair of me to say, but I feel like out of the people that were on that season, he was like the one that stuck out to me. Like
You
he
can always tell
actually
like who
wanted to.
really wants it.
Yeah. I mean, just like getting in, warming up, you know who's actually taking it seriously, and you know who's just like, I'm over here too. But he was like always paying attention, listening to what people were saying, and I was like, that guy's gonna really do something. And then he didn't make it, and I was like, well, that sucks. I hope that's not the last I see of him. And then he comes back as Velveteen Dream, and I was like, mind blown.
I didn't get to watch much of that season, but it's kind of, if you go back and if you watch the old Tough Enough, there was a guy, Matt Capitelli, and unfortunately he passed away, and his career was kind of hindered by injuries and health problems. But that was somebody that I grew up on. Tough Enough started when I was in high school, to date myself again. But he was one of those that you could just tell really wanted it, was really passionate about the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that I've always kind of looked up to and admired you guys since you've been here, and I think that that's why I became friends with you all outside of the business.
Right.
Is because for your guys, you both of you are mature past your years, and to have this amount of passion about the business that you have is crazy to me because 19-year-old me or 16-year-old me would have been fucking blackballed from the business because I was a cocky prick. Right. So what makes you guys as humble as you are, and what drives you? Like, where does this come from? Is it something you've learned through your parents? Or?
Well, yeah, our parents for sure deserve all the credit for that. Our mom raised us right. But I think what helps a lot with that, I mean, we're definitely immature. I'm not going to say that we're not because we are kids. But I think our traveling has really opened our eyes to what the real world is like, whereas a lot of people don't leave their hometowns.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's very true. Like, I mean, before I joined the military, like, I hadn't really experienced a lot of life.
They live in like a little bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just sometimes when you are able to see what the real world is like, you're able to leave that bubble. You kind of open your eyes and you don't. It's not that you don't take things as seriously. You don't try to take yourself as seriously. And you learn to kind of realize that you're not the only person on the planet.
And it humbles you. Like, you don't get a choice. You are humbled, you know? But I also think that with wrestling, I mean, you have to have that amount of respect to get anywhere.
Absolutely.
In the business. And I think that because we have traveled, it'll help us a lot in our future, especially because a lot of these guys in like the WWE, a hard thing for them is the traveling, constantly being on the road, whereas we're pretty much used to that, you know. So I think that'll help us out a lot in our careers.
That's a good trait to have, especially at your guys' age, because the travel does weigh. Like I said, I go back to me being in the military and having to just pack up and leave on a moment's notice. Yeah. That doesn't bother people like us.
Right.
And a lot of people, it would be, well, shit, I've got to pack a bag and be out of here in an hour. That sucks. Like, we're kind of used to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason, like, I kind of have connected with you guys to the level of what I have.
Right.
But to kind of segue around, let's talk gimmicks now.
Yes,
like,
sir.
you don't have to get into character and you don't have to tell somebody they suck. But you both kind of have like I said, I've talked to Jeff Miller earlier. I talked to Judas. Like, it went into a deep dive on music on both of them.
Yes, sir.
You guys are very musically influenced gimmick-wise.
Oh, for sure, yeah. The punk thing isn't really so much a gimmick as our dad was in like 3 punk bands in his life, so we were raised in it. You know, we were raised in the punk scene.
You ever listen to Porno Arcade?
Oh,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
There you go, Chad.
We were in
Plug.
Porno Okay, it's awesome. We were in mosh pits before we ever went to school dances or anything like that.
Actually, I didn't go to a school dance. I've never been to
I
one.
unfortunately did.
I've never been to a school dance.
I have to.
I've been to like the socials and stuff, but in like middle school, but never like a high school dance or anything. But you know, plenty of mosh pits. I was in my first one at like 8 years old, 9 years old.
I started one at a school dance once. I got thrown out. So what, as far as the Oconley kids, the gimmick, I know a lot of it is musically influenced, like you said, through the punk thing. You're Chicago's new punk.
Right.
How
did you come up with the concept of it? Who are the Oconley kids?
Well, we came up with the concepts basically because I have 3 other siblings, but Asher and I, we've always been the closest. We used to tell people that we were twins because I've always been small and he's always been big. So we were kind of around the same height until he shot up about a foot taller than me. And we just, we understand each other. We have this dynamic that twins have, really, even though we're 3 years apart. But so we knew when we were getting into this that we wanted to do it together. In fact, I told him, like, after I had told my parents, like, I want to do this, I was like, I'm going to do this, but you have to do it with me. You've loved this since you were a little kid. I mean, you're built for this. He's 16 and 6'3". I mean, you're perfect for this. He's very charismatic. So that's kind of where we decided we want to do this together as far as, like, the Oconley kids go. Like, the gimmick itself,
well, like when we were with Vince Russo, he gave some very good advice by saying the best characters are people that play themselves just turned up a notch or completely different than who they are in real life. And I would say the other spectrum of that is someone like Velveteen Dream. Then again, I don't know that guy in real life, so he could act like that, just turned up a notch. But
Goldust is a great example.
Goldust is a great example. Or you could play someone like who you are, just turned up a notch, like a Stone Cold Steve Austin or a John Moxley kind of character, to where that's kind of who they are in real life. And we just went with that route because I felt like that would be more natural to me. I was always told in school or wherever I was in any kind of social platform that I was a very loud personality. So I was like, well, if I'm a loud personality, it's not going to be that much work to turn it up a notch and make it even louder. So,
and I think there is a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
Because this is the most comfortable that I've ever felt as far as a character, because I feel like the crazy shit is kind of a lot of what's dug out, like, deep down in me. And then a lot of the metal and the punk influences in the character, I mean, that's kind of who I am.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, I think, like, besides all the physical stuff that comes with wrestling, like, the creative outlet that everybody has is absolutely fantastic, because you can take your character and you can make whatever you want with it, because it's, at the end of the day, it's your image, and you're gonna make the best out of it that you can. And that's all I've ever tried to do, is do my best. When I'm taking bumps in the ring, when I'm talking, I always just try to do my best. And if I do my best, I'm going to at least get that far. And if I can get that far, then I can get a little bit closer each time I try again.
Right.
And so I think the characters, like, they really stem from who we are as a person, turned up a notch, and then kind of our rapport between each other. Like,
yeah, I guess the idea behind the gimmick too is kind of a bit of an odd couple thing.
yes.
Because, like, I'm not mad all the time. I'm not angry or
Really?
mean all the time. When I do get mad, like, in reality, I get really mad.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of came up with the idea that Dara is just gonna be a bitch constantly, an angry, mean little shit constantly. Whereas Crash, he's not that you're not serious, but you're more of like a goofy.
Very serious. I keep my butt clenched half the time. Yeah, no, I'm a very goofy person. I can turn it on and I can act serious and angry, and you know, when I'm in the chicken suit, I'm damn angry. But when I'm like not and I'm doing my thing, I can act serious. But if you know me in person, I'm a very goofy person. I like to have fun. Like I said, I don't take myself seriously. I'm a very humble person. I'm realistic, and that's why I love wrestling, because you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be realistic. And I've always been honest. I mean, even when it hurts people's feelings, I'm going to be a very candor person and be like, look, this is your weaknesses and these are your strengths. Use your strengths.
Yeah, with wrestling, I mean, like, there's certain roles that everybody can fit,
Yeah.
you know? And then there's roles that only you can fit, that are individual to who you are as a person. I can't go out here and I can't pretend like I'm a huge ripped bodybuilder. I'm 110 pounds. Nobody's gonna buy that.
Fair enough.
Take someone like Ricky Dooley. Ricky Dooley is going to play the role of Ricky Dooley. He's not going to play the role of the Ginger Ninja.
We could.
Maybe.
Or what I should say is Bruce Samuels can't play that Ricky Dooley character. He doesn't have a beard.
He doesn't have a beard.
He'd be like Baby Dooley.
It could be like the good-looking cousin. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Roles are meant for people, though, for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like when you are yourself, or even if you are something completely different, it's easier for you to
Come out of that shell.
be honest. If you are honest with who you are and what your limitations are, then it's easier for you to feel comfortable, I think. And also, like, you can build yourself. You can push what makes you uncomfortable at that point. You can see where you stand, and then you can push your own boundaries, and then you can develop from there, and you can get better from there.
And I think that's the turning it up a notch kind of part, is once you are who you are, then it's not hard at all to be who you are, but really be who you are. Don't worry about what people are going to think.
Yep, that
Don't
makes a
worry
lot
at all.
of sense.
Don't overthink it. Just be you. And I think that's like something I've never had as a problem. I think that's also like a thing with traveling. I saw how many people there were in the world, and I was like, you know what? There's over 7 billion people on this planet. Why is this one person, why is their opinion supposed to sway mine? Like, why do I care about them? So why should I care about what they think? So I can act how I want to act, kind of thing.
That's a hell of a way to think, especially at your age, because I look back when I was 16 at how my opinion was swayed by how society looked at me.
Right.
And I felt that before I joined the military and actually got to meet people from other walks of life, that did kind of screw me up to a point, because I was more worried about that than I was about the rest of life happening around me.
Right.
Right,
And I felt I was way more important than what I really was.
You can't blame people for that, because it's hard not to get wrapped up in a bubble, or like have your perspective kind of smaller. But like, to add on to what you're saying, people's opinions don't matter, because you can just pack up your stuff, head a couple hundred miles down the road,
I mean, that
and
is very
start all over
true.
again. And that's why wrestling is a great outlet too, because if something doesn't work for you, then scrap it. Be something completely different, and you still have all the freedom in the world. And I think that's why I personally love wrestling so much, is because you can be anybody or anything, but especially you can be yourself.
Yeah.
That's a cool way of looking at it. I definitely want to hit the rewind button real quick. You mentioned Vince Russo had told you.
sir.
So you guys trained with Vince Russo in
Absolutely.
Colorado, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. That's a cool story.
Bro,
Let me
tell
tell you, bro.
I had to do it if you weren't going to.
Russo, he's a nice guy. When we first met him, I'm not gonna lie, as soon as we got to Colorado, we met him within like 20 minutes of being there.
Oh yeah, no, I think it was less than that. Like, as soon as we pulled into where we were staying at, because where we were staying at, we
were taking our first.
staying right at the school.
We were taking our first bumps in a ring. I shouldn't say our first bumps in general, because
This girl bumped on gravel. I bumped on things, like a yoga mat on gravel and stuff like that. But she was just like, no, I'll just do it on gravel. I'm like, yo, okay, you're insane.
I wanted
But-
to see how bad it could get.
What the hell?
But within our first 15, 20 minutes of being there, we were in the ring bumping. I was shaking when we met Russo, because I was like, holy shit.
I mean, he's a polarizing character. I mean, it's either love or
Absolutely.
hate. Like, he's Jim Cornette's best friend, right?
Right,
Yeah,
absolutely. We get along great. But we were so nervous, but he was really nice. He was really friendly. He loved the idea of the brother-sister duo, and that we were embracing the fact, not trying to hide that we were siblings, because
Right.
we look alike, But he said it's not a very common thing in wrestling. Mostly
It's
you
really
have brother
not.
brother or sister sister. I mean, other than Stephanie.
And that's what we listed. We said, what about Stephanie and Shane? And he was like, they never really did a tag team thing, though. He
No,
was like,
they
This is a
didn't,
very
yeah.
original concept, and you guys should stick with it. And, like, from there, and then, like, him saying the whole thing about being yourself, and, like, when that started, like, clicking together, I think everything else started coming together, too.
Yeah, I can't think of any other that's even close. The Hart Dynasty, but they really weren't brother-sister. It was
Right,
more,
right.
they were related, and that was...
Yeah, and I think that's kind of another reason why us breaking into the business at this time is so, like, we're so fortunate with that, because there's that intergender wrestling
Absolutely.
going on, and we're getting these opportunities, and it's a more common thing for there to be, like, mixed tag matches and stuff, where we'll get to work together, and go through this and advance in our careers together.
For sure.
But yeah, I just think.
So you
very
started
fortunate.
with Russo.
Yes.
Where did you start before Russo, or was?
No, we started at the same time. I knew before he did that I wanted to start wrestling. So I was doing stuff on my own. I was watching seminars and stuff. At home, I was practicing bumps outside. I was, cutting promos in the mirrors and stuff like that.
All the classics.
All the classics. All the fun
We've
stuff.
all done it.
But yeah, we started at the exact same time. I bumped before he did, technically. So
Yeah.
Who was your
Early
trainers?
days.
at-
our trainers, who were we trained by? Who did we bump with the first time?
I think the first person to teach us an actual bump was Ty Hosen.
Ty.
He goes by
He must have left a hell of an impression on you guys. I mean,
I don't remember what his real
he was
name
another
is.
student. He was the one that taught us the flat back bump.
I guess what I'm asking is, as far as Russo with
Who
Rocky
owned the
Mountain
school?
Pro, who was the trainer there?
It was Matthew Yaden.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've heard
he
the
didn't
name.
do a lot of training. Honestly, he kind of did like the whole stand outside type thing. It was mostly led by a guy who really trained us more than anything. He came up from Reality of Wrestling.
He was in a
In
tag
Houston?
team with Ruthless Ryan Davidson.
Oh well, I should add that too.
probably
Oh, yeah,
we
we-
went down there first. We weren't originally going to train in Colorado. We were originally going to train in Houston at Reality of Wrestling, but right as we got down there, that hurricane had happened.
Yeah.
And there was nowhere for us to stay. We were in our RV at the time, and all the RV parks around, even within an hour's drive, were full up with like contractors trying to make repairs after the hurricane.
Or they were just destroyed.
Or they were just completely flooded or whatever. So we couldn't stay. We got to go to a couple of their shows, and I got to meet Stevie Ray, and
He was such a
such a
cool
sweet guy.
guy.
I wish I would have gotten a better picture with him. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
it's
crappy
bad lighting. But
I
like,
met a lot of their guys at a show in San Antonio, and I just happened to be down there randomly. Like Kylie Ray was there, who I
yeah.
wish she would have stayed in AEW, but
Yeah.
she's phenomenal. Gino Medina, who is
Yeah.
in MLW now,
Yeah,
he's
he's really cool.
tremendous. What brought you guys here? Like, how did you find out about us? Like, what?
So I think like after Denver and Colorado, we were sitting back like kind of wondering like what do we want to do next? We went down to Arizona to get some more money ready for ourselves because we knew we were going to do another big trip, you know. And we were like, okay, where do we want to go next?
We
want to
wanted
be
some
taught by
legitimacy.
someone.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can get trained by
Like
anybody.
you said, who was that Matthew? I've heard of his name. No one knew who the other guy was.
Everybody's heard of Ricky
Back
Morton.
bump. Everybody knows who Ricky Morton is. And right now, specifically
Credit to
right now in
Alex.
wrestling,
Alex Slack, is that his name?
Alex Slack.
He's
yes.
he's the guy who came up from Houston.
Okay.
He trained us more than anything.
I don't think anybody. There's not a lot of other people that I can mention that actually like
But after-
gave me more knowledge than him.
In Denver, after we lost their TV deal and after Russo left, we were like, okay, we need to figure out where we're gonna go from here. But we want that name behind us. We want to be trained by people who know what they're talking about. So winter
Like-
came around. We wanted to go somewhere warm for the winter, so we went to Arizona. And well, really, it's California. We're like right on the border of
Gotcha.
Arizona, California. And we were thinking about going to some of those schools out there. There's a lot of professional wrestling
Yeah.
down in that area. Not in Arizona so much, but there's
California has a ton.
Yeah.
right. And we were thinking, were they going to stay here or we're going to head out east? And we were like, well, we've been all over the West Coast,
Yeah.
100 times over. So
We
we
kind of
figured
wanted to do something
we
new.
wanted to do something new. There's a lot of wrestling out in this part of the country, especially in the South. But we plan to, from here, like this is our home.
Yeah.
But we plan, if we travel, to go up the East Coast.
Like I
think.
said, to those New England kind of
guess
areas,
I
like
wanna
where
see 'em.
wrestling's
Oh,
been,
yeah.
you know.
Come back down, go through all of it. We want to go all over the country. I mean, we've knocked out
all
how
over the
many
country,
states?
all over the world.
So did you guys find School of Morton on Facebook, or did somebody? Was it
We
word of
researched
mouth?
it, like
Yeah, we were researching different
we
professional
looked up the
wrestling
website,
schools.
the Facebook page, Twitter. We were watching episodes, anything we could because we wanted to get familiar with the roster.
Product knowledge, yeah.
A big aspect in when we search for schools is if Asher can get trained, because
Yeah.
not everywhere will
Yes.
train
It's
you
going to
unless
accept
you're-
a 16-year-old.
Yeah, and when we
Exactly.
saw Jungle Boy, we were
Yeah,
like,
full credit to Jungle Boy. He's a good reason why we're here, because we saw him and we were like, oh my god,
We can do it.
They train because we can do it here. Which I mean, I could have trained pretty much anywhere,
Right.
but I want to do this with you.
Right.
Like, not that I don't want to do it without you. I mean, if you stop, I'm
Right,
still
and-
gonna wrestle.
Exactly. Plus that kind of like experience, like if I did stop, I'm just losing that much more on progress that I can be making. Like,
Oh, yeah.
say I might not be able to do proper handstand bump right now at 16, but when I'm 25 and I've been wrestling for 10 years, where most guys have wrestled for
And you haven't stopped
7.
growing. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, I swear, half the time I wake up and he gets like taller each day.
Just like slowly inching up.
It's crap. I'm the shortest of all my siblings.
When I was born, the doctor said I'd be 6'8". I don't know if that'll come to fruition. I hope not. I hate buying new shoes.
Did you hear that, Hunter?
So, yeah, like, I think it's like Hacksaw Jim Duggan said, you don't want to be taught by any phony baloney, like, teaching you a backdrop. You want to actually go somewhere to someone who's been to the dance, and when we were looking for someone like that, that's why we
I mean,
checked
it's
out
Ricky
Booker T.
Morton. Come on.
When we checked out Booker T School, that was the entire reason why we checked that out. He was a Hall of Famer.
Oh,
And then-
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, let's be realistic. What other reason would we really want to go to Galveston?
Right, yeah. Like,
Galveston's nice. Depending.
Okay, but it
in
was
the summertime.
It is so
In the
humid. There's
summertime.
I lived in
crazy
San
bugs.
Antonio, so
Oh, good.
Yeah, you're used
I mean,
to it.
it's like-
We living in Arizona. We're used to dry
Dry
heat.
heat.
yeah, it's a different beast out that way.
It's miserable.
So when we went up to
humidity.
Denver, it wasn't really so much of like, it was that, but we knew Vince Russo was there, and that was the main thing. We wanted to be taught things like television, knowing where the hard cam is, characters, things like that. And
Did he go over that in training? Was it-
absolutely.
Okay.
That was basically their big thing, was teaching
their
people
big
television.
selling point was the character development and
Yes.
the television aspect.
That's interesting. And I notice we do a lot of that here
Yeah.
as opposed to other wrestling
then
schools.
you go into
that's
the
not doing
psychology.
that.
Yeah, but
too.
here we are so fortunate here because of the environment, and it's a much more family environment. Everybody's there's a much healthier bond between the entire locker room.
Right.
But I felt our first day here. I remember turning to Ash and I was like, I think I've been more in the ring here in these few hours than I was the entire 6 months.
Yeah, and
we were.
and the thing was, is we both thought the same thing, and then when she said it to me, I was like,
Because we
I
get
was
so much
convinced.
more individual training here, whereas there it was more like you were
It was more drills than anything, I think.
not so much even that, but you were a number.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
If you didn't get it, move on to the next.
I've
guy.
heard that about a lot of the bigger schools, especially, and I'm not trying to dog reality of wrestling, but I have heard from people that have went to that school that you're fighting for ring time to get a spot
Yeah,
or two. in.
and
Yeah,
that's
I've
the
heard
thing
that
is
as well.
Alex told us that because he was from ROW. He said because we were talking about where do you think we should go next. We asked him, someone who had actually been somewhere else, and he was like, I wouldn't go back to ROW because when I was there, the school was always packed and people were fighting to get in the ring. It's a huge roster, and he was like, and half those guys haven't been on television and they've been there for 6 months. And he's like, and that's how long you've been here. He was like, you want to get somewhere and you want to start getting in the ring. You want to start having matches, get experience now. And so we were like, okay, well, where do we want to go to do that sort of thing? And that plus the whole psychology aspect of being here, being taught by Ricky Morton.
Oh yeah, and it's a
it all
completely
kinda-
different style of wrestling here.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
Like southern style wrestling is definitely a real thing.
Yes,
Which
yes.
it's my favorite aspect of wrestling is the storytelling.
Yeah.
The old
is-
Memphis style is what
Yes.
a lot
Oh,
of people
yeah,
call it.
It's definitely more focused on in trainings here, and I think that's where people really grow more than anything in wrestling. Because anybody can go through the motions and go
Yep.
through the moves, but if you can compel people to watch you,
It forces you to be a character, which I feel
Exactly,
is something that we have that most places don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, with all of us here, we're character
Right,
driven
when you
people.
see something like a Jungle Boy, to the average person, they're going to ask, well, what's a Jungle Boy? You say someone's name.
It's
they're gonna
Luke
be like,
Perry's
okay,
kid,
yeah.
man.
So you're gonna ask yourself that because I think at the end of the day, wrestling is all about creating characters. Like WWE says, we make movies.
well, it's
You
not
know,
even, it's not
we're
even so
larger
much
than
creating
life people.
characters; it's telling the story.
Telling the story.
You know what I mean? But if you don't have characters to tell the story, then it's not interesting.
Yeah, exactly. That mixed with the whole being able to train at how young I am, the whole thing about like learning psychology.
And getting to work with Ricky Morton, just having the privilege to
He
even
was
go
here
to a
when we
seminar.
showed up.
Oh
That
my
freaked
God.
us
That's pretty
out.
cool, and
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Within the first 15, 20 minutes of being in Denver, we were standing in front of Vince Russo and I was shaking. And I was thinking, as we were pulling up to the school, I was getting nervous again, starting to shake again, like, holy crap.
Here we go again.
I really hope, what if Ricky Morton's there? We pull up and he's right out front.
He's
unlocked. He's outside at the door,
like,
and we pull up right in front of him, and I'm like, oh God, here we go again.
don't freak out.
But he welcomed us. It was such a warm welcome.
And it's not just Ricky, which is cool too. We have Crazy Steve is here on
Yes.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
we're very privileged to be here.
I think a lot of people, if you're watching this, because like you're like us and you're watching the product, being like, should I do this sort of thing? I have a friend who wants to get into wrestling. He's like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what kind of schools I want to go to. I'm like, go to ours.
This is
There's
it.
no better place to. And because like I think people, when they look at all these different schools, they look at Monster Factory, they look at Rockstar Wrestling, they look at all reality of wrestling, they look at a bunch of different promotions from all over the country, and they're like, okay, what does each one give me? I think this one, if you could try to count up all the things that you would want in a school, this delivers the most.
And that's what
you
most
could
people
get
that
out
come here say as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I know we have in and outs a lot with some Crazy Steve's here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Jimmy Golden's been here.
Yeah.
Kane's been here. That's before your guys'
if I
time.
meet Kane, I'm gonna lose my
Freaking out
Who else?
again.
Boogie has worked shows with us. I know
Joey Ryan
we've all
is
picked
here.
his
Got a
Got a
brains.
nice kiss on the lips there.
And Joey
enjoy that?
Ryan's been
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Austin Theory's in NXT
Yeah.
now. He's been here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to have all these brains to pick and stuff too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. We're very, very privileged to be here.
So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Do you guys have anything you want to say? Any shout outs? Anybody?
Shout outs.
I don't know about shout
I don't
outs.
like anybody.
I'll shout myself out. Follow me on Twitter at Crash Oconley, And
Hey, there you
also
go.
on
Twitter and Instagram handles. Shoot them out. Nobody else has.
Instagram is like Chicago's _new_punk.
Both mine are just Dara Oconley. And
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
like,
basic.
most people who are watching this already follow me anyway.
Follow us. I mean, follow the School of Morton. Follow Ricky Morton. If you're not, what
Bronson
are you doing?
_SOM
Yeah,
on Twitter and
plug all
Instagram.
that stuff. You got to keep up to date with our media because we're always pushing out new content. Stuff like this, these are the opportunities that we're talking about. You can't go to every promotion and get these kind of opportunities.
No,
So,
you really can't.
follow
That's
us.
it with the Oconley kids for now. We're going to have to do this again because I felt like I could have got another hour out of you guys.
Probably.
I
We
can
talk a lot.
I can talk for hours.
So we'll be back. Until next time, catch you later.